Welcome to the Generous Business Owner Podcast, where business owners gain inspiration and encouragement to live a legacy, not just leave one. And now your hosts, Jeff Thomas, Alan Barnhart, and Jeff Rutt.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's Generous Business Owner Podcast. My name is Jeff Thomas, and I've got our fearless co-host, Jeff Rutt, with us. Say hello to the people, Jeff.
Hello to the people.
Hello to the people. We have a very special guest with us today. We have Nate Johnson. He is a partner and president of Potter Homes, which is a builder of waterfront homes in Southwest Florida. Nate, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Well, I have to admit, I was looking at your website earlier preparing for this and kind of regretting not scheduling more waterfront vacation in my life. But that's a whole nother story. Hey, Jeff, why don't you kick us off?
Yes. Nate, tell us a little bit about what it was like to grow up in the Nate household. The growing up years, spiritual formation, any fun junior high entrepreneurial stories. Walk us through some of those years.
Yeah, I was born and raised in northern Indiana to a great family. My dad was what I would call a serial workaholic. Really didn't go to college and worked most of his life to put me and my brothers through college so that we could be where we are today. And come full circle, my dad actually moved to Southwest Florida 12 years ago and now works for me. He is just an instrumental and key part of the business that I get to run every day. So I get to see him every day, work with him every day, and be challenged by him. So went to Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana, and then through a crazy story, married my wife, who was born and raised in Naples, Florida. And that moved me down here in the Great Recession of 2007, 2008. And I was able to get started in construction and development by getting paid peanuts when the company I worked for was letting people go. They hired me to be able to be a part of their team because they could pay me a lot less money. So, but yeah, born into a family of construction. My dad was a builder growing up and worked really hard, and it's all I really knew. And through college and coming down to Florida, I really fell in love with development and became a serial entrepreneur. So that's a lot of my heart for business and growth.
So just looking at your website here, Potter Homes, go to potterhomes.com, check it out. But tell us about, there's got to be some interesting stories growing up in, did you say Indiana?
Yeah.
And there's some contrast between Indiana and Naples. And housing in general. But before we get to the current the days on the water, what was it like in the home building business in Indiana?
Yeah, quite different. Type of construction is very different, but also just the style and size of home. I grew up in farmland and grew up in ranch style houses and houses that were 1,500 square feet and under. And you move to Florida, and all of a sudden I'm building waterfront homes that are 8,000 to 10,000 square feet and elevated on the beach. So couldn't be any different living in Florida from Indiana. But quite honestly, I missed the Indiana days, the fall weather, the farmland. I dream of it often, but I'm stuck here in sunny South Florida. So.
Yeah. Any fun stories in those early years helping out sweeping floors or any entrepreneurial projects of your own?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of memories of just being on job sites with my dad, from 15 years old and under. I actually remember one time he got so sick and tired of me falling around that he put me on a high lift, and I just got to operate the high lift up and down all day long, bringing people from the first floor to the second floor. And I loved that and enjoyed that. And just story after story of me being able to slave labor.
Wait. So you were how old? And they were riding on the high lift? Were they strapped in there somehow? Or
I don't remember if they were strapped in or not. Probably not. They're probably hanging out the side. But I was the operator at probably 10 years old, and that was a fun, joyful time. So,
And nobody died.
not that I know of,
Yeah.
or I can remember. I have a pretty bad memory, you know.
Jeff, we have a pattern of these. I think
Yeah.
we just had one of these where the insurance part of my brain just goes bananas, right?
Yeah.
There's some insurance agent listening to this, shaking his head, going, "Oh my gosh, okay, thank goodness that was some years ago," right?
Yeah. So talk a little bit about, I want to get into your company there
Yeah.
in Naples, but
Yeah.
some of the formation, you've obviously been very successful building high-end homes. And, we'll get into some of the price tags in a minute, but some of the foundations that you picked up as a kid and a young adult learning from, that older generation being mentored. What are some of the values that you picked up and carried through then?
Yeah, it's a good question. Honestly, a large part of my story is coming to faith in high school and having a call to ministry in college and being discipled really well by a gentleman at Ball State University. And at that point in my life, kind of integrating my faith and work. And those characteristics really following me to this day. So I've been bivocational, I've been a pastor, and I've been a business leader for the last 15 years. And a lot of my growth has come actually in ministry. So it's leading in business and leading in ministry. It's easy to say that running a company is hard, but leading in ministry is harder. There's just no way around it. And being a part of the local church and being a part of what you do in international ministry and church planting, that's where a lot of my development came in leadership. And so the last 15 years has been a journey, and it's been a journey of me trying to figure out how to balance, how to focus, how to stay true to who God's made me to be while leading a thriving and successful business and being a part of ministry locally and globally. And so faith and work integration is a huge part of my heart. And in this season, it's now trying to figure out, all right, what do I say yes to? What do I say no to? And how do I lead my family well? And how do I lead my business well? All while being a part of God's kingdom. And so that's really how I really developed the most is through my ministry experience. So.
Wow. So unpack that a little bit more. So came to faith in high school. You end up with a very successful business in Naples. Like, what happened in between? Tell us a little bit about your family formation, your business formation, the ministry, and that intersection of faith and business.
Yeah. So when I moved down, we got involved with the great church here in Southwest Florida in Fort Myers and went to work. And I remember working 89-day-hour weeks as a 20-year-old, college graduate, just slaving away, and got to a place where I had an opportunity to be a part of a smaller company. So I moved from that job into a small millwork company here locally and working more hours in that company. And at that time, I was 24, I think, at the time. And one of the elders of my church called me and said, "Hey, we're looking for someone to come and work part-time to help us figure out where we are on the business side of the church." And from that point to really 2022, I spent time helping the church, get organized and get structured and plant churches and be a part of local ministry. While at the same time, my father-in-law, who started Potter Homes, he called me within the 6-month period and said, "Hey, we have a lot of work going on. Will you come and consider working at Potter Homes?" And so I was like, "Sure." So I ended up leaving the millwork company, staying in ministry, coming to work at Potter Homes. And so that began the journey of trying to figure out how do we do both of these things well. And then Potter Homes, just from 2012 to 2022, just it went crazy and trying to figure out how to be a part of that growth and ultimately lead that growth. So yeah, it's been a journey. There's a lot to unpack and not enough time, but it's been a challenge along the way, and I'm grateful to be where I am today.
Was
Wow.
the church technically a job, or was that a volunteer thing? Were you like on staff at the church?
Yeah, kind of both. And so I started as a part-time part-time employee, and then stayed part-time the whole time, and eventually phased off and became just a volunteer elder at the church. And so I took a sabbatical from 2022 to last January, and I just agreed to step back in for a season to be an elder there. But really the last 6 years, we've at Potter Homes in my family, we have been deeply connected with Life Song for Orphans, which I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that ministry, but they are an amazing ministry. And really quick story, they were a part of the church that I'm a part of. I met Andy, who's the VP at Life Song, in 2015, and found out that they were actually doing ministry in Zambia, Africa, in a small town called Kitwe. And my head about blew off because my father-in-law was born and raised in Zambia, Africa, in a little town called Kitwe.
What?
And you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
So that began just a journey for us to be able to explore, how do we get involved with Life Song? My father-in-law was in the back end of his career at Potter Homes and was trying to figure out what life looked like, for him and his wife. And so that began an awesome partnership. And actually, we just prayed for 4 of our team members that are leaving tomorrow for a 2-week trip to Zambia, Africa, to build a high school over there.
Wow.
And so, there's so many details that are hard to share with a short amount of time, but it's pretty cool to see how ministry and business have come full circle, and we're seeing them integrate right now, which is pretty cool. So
that is so awesome. We just came back from Zambia. Our family was just there in February. We were in Macha, and then we were also out in Mamba, two different directions. If you go out to Choma and go either north or go west.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And where are they building the high school? Where would that be in reference to like Lusaka and the capital?
It's 30 minutes from Lusaka. Yeah, it's okay. I'm not sure where it's in the map, but it's really close to Lusaka. They're flying from Atlanta to Joburg to Livingston, and then it's all in that whole area. So
that's awesome. Have you been there?
I have not. My father-in-law has been begging me to go. I have 4 kids under 12, and so it hasn't been in the cards for me.
Gotta go.
I'm sending my dad. I know I need to go. I'm sending my dad and some employees before I even go, which is
take them with you.
Exciting to do.
Take them with you. My son and his 4 that are 10 and under were just there with us. They were there for 3.5 weeks, and my daughter has a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and they were all there as well. So.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's Zambia is very kid friendly.
I'm gonna send this recording to my wife. So.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'll tell her to call my daughter and daughter-in-law. But tell me more about it. I love when I hear about that intersection between business and ministry. Say more about just some of the impact that it has had on each, and how you kind of integrate both of them in your mind, heart, and soul.
Yeah, well, it's easy to say that ministry impacts business. If you have a heart for the Lord and a heart for Jesus, hopefully it's oozing out and influencing everything you do. But I think it's a lot harder to understand how business actually impacts ministry. And you know this with your background, but just being able to wear my business hat in ministry and be able to actually figure out what does it look like to go after the Great Commission and do it in a way where you're doing it with friends that you love and using profits from your companies and tag teaming with people that maybe you wouldn't run across but that have the same heart and mind to be able to fund. And I mean, what we're doing in Zambia is a great example. We're not only giving to it, but we're sending people there to help build. And, Life Song for Ministry, Life Song for Orphans, their focus is on economic engines. They want to see sustainable business and for-profit businesses actually fund the work so that orphans can come in, become leaders, and they can actually have a home. And so a large part of being able to see how business impacts ministry has come through that working, and how do we start businesses to fund ministry? How do we actually create sustainable businesses in country like Zambia or Ukraine or other areas? And so yeah, I've been deeply impacted by the business and ministry kind of ethos. So
What did was it hard for you to think about talking to the company employees about this? I mean, that's a really cool family story. You see this ministry at church. Your father-in-law grew up there. I mean, that's definitely a God thing. But like, then, I mean, you could have just done it on your own with the family. So talk about that process of bringing it to the company. How'd you think about that, and how did they react?
that's a great question. I think it's always been a large part of my heart to lead a business in this way, but it was kind of like the Lord. It was not kind of. It was the Lord just handed it to me with the fact that Bill, who started the company, we were going to be doing ministry in his backyard, so there's no way for us not to share the story. And so we, we've had an adoption grant the company has with LifeSong, and we funded adoptions. But as we started to communicate these things to our employees, they started asking questions and they wanted to get involved. And so it's one thing to say, hey, we're going to get involved financially through our giving, but being able to actually explain to them why,
Yeah.
and say that the work that they're doing day to day actually is, we're not just building great houses, but we like to say at Potter Homes, is built by our family, for your family, for the good of families in need. And that kind of tagline is no longer just a tagline. It's the work that our employees are doing day to day matters, and not only to provide excellent process in homes here for our clients, but because it actually influences and impacts, kids and families worldwide. And so it's been
could you say
really
that
fun.
again? Could you say that a little slower?
Great
I'd
line.
like to.
Yeah. We like to say that Potter Homes, a Potter home is built by our family, for your family, for the good of families in need. And so,
That's powerful.
Yeah, foundation of faith, built on family, crafted with excellence. Those are our values. But really, the tagline for what we do is, by our family, for your family, for the good of families in need. And we're really starting to see that happen, which is.
I feel like we're going to see that on Jeff
cool.
Rutt's website next week. But
yeah,
let's go.
Listen, really, we just do this to steal ideas, Nate. So thanks.
No, we don't. But that seems like a good tagline.
No, it's fantastic. I'm kidding, but it's fantastic.
Yeah. So very kind of loosely related. We have a tagline: "Craftsman for the common good." But in addition to that, profit for purpose. Trying to figure out. But I love yours: by our family, for your family, for the good of families in need.
Yeah.
It's really
that's
good.
awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. That's powerful.
It really is.
Yeah, praise God.
That's really good. So maybe back up, if you don't mind. I'd love to hear the Potter Home story a little bit. You said it. Did your father-in-law start it? It is kind of a family business. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's a wild story. So Bill is his name. He was born and raised in Zambia. His dad tragically died when he was 17 years old, which then moved him in Zambia, in country, which made moved him to Vancouver. And he ended up going to school at Iowa State and meeting my mother-in-law. And they ended up moving down to West Palm Beach in the early 1980s, and he built what's now called the Trump Tower over there. It wasn't the Trump Tower at the time, but he built the Trump Tower, and then moved to Bonita Springs when my wife was born in 1986, and he built a large community here, and then started building custom homes. So hang
on a second. You cannot make this stuff up. So born in Zambia, moves to, did you say Canada?
Vancouver. Yeah, Vancouver. Yep.
Vancouver, moves to Vancouver. Then he moves to
Iowa State.
Iowa.
Went to Iowa.
Iowa State, meets his wife, and then he moves to Bonita Springs.
West Palm Beach.
Then Bonita.
And then Bonita.
And then builds the Trump Tower.
He builds the Trump Tower in West Palm, comes to Bonita, starts.
If we've all heard that story before, why are you so shocked? I mean, that's a typical path for a kid growing up in Zambia. I mean, you just.
You're kidding.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Wild. It's wild. So his story, that's what I'm trying to get him to understand. His story is so amazing. I'm trying to get him to share it, you know. And so he started the company. Then he actually had another custom home company that he had a partner that didn't go well. So he ended up through the wisdom of his father-in-law told him to hand the company over. He did. And in 2001, he started Potter Homes, and he ended up doing small projects. And then eventually his son, Tom, who's my partner now, moved down in 2004 and started working for him. And they got one beach house. And then we got connected with a developer who ended up in the recession buying a lot of beachfront property down here in the 2007, 2009 era. And we ended up building 52 beachfront homes for this one developer.
Wow.
Over
From
what
2000, yeah, 2009 to 2019 in 10-year period.
Wow. So
And
give us some kind of scale and scope here. So again, I go back to the Indiana ranchers. What price range
Yep.
were they?
Yeah, I mean, we were buying at that time. We were buying land for $2 million for the dirt, and we were paying a couple million for construction. So selling them for $6 to $7 million.
No, I'm talking about the Indiana ranchers.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Indiana ranchers. I grew up in a house that was 1,500 square feet. I think my mom and dad paid $75,000 for it.
Yeah. Okay. So we got in that, like, maybe let's crank it up to six figures. So let's say $100,000. That was buying you a nice little home. And now what are they selling for? These 50 beachfront homes that you sold?
Yeah, I mean, in this market, they're selling for 15 million.
How many do you get for that?
How many?
That's one?
What's one?
That's,
so what's
wait, that's one house?
one house. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's pretty crazy.
Wow.
Pretty crazy.
That's
yeah,
amazing.
to see the difference. Yeah. Wild.
That's amazing.
Florida. Gotta love it.
Yeah.
Gotta
So
love it.
so
So
Zambia.
what's
sort of
along the
Trump
way?
out.
There's nobody in business if you've been in long enough, but let alone the home building business that you guys obviously know better than I do. But everybody's had a setback along the way. What's a setback? I know you kind of came after '08. Everybody's got an '08, '09 setback if you're in the business. But so it could be just for the business or for yourself personally or in business. But what's a setback story for Potter or for you?
Got a lot of them. Well, I mean, I think a lot of it came in '08. '08 created a lot of growth for us. Believe it or not, when the rest of the world was in a down cycle, that's when we got really busy. And so the setback for me, really, for me and the company, is trying to figure out how to focus. So I'm a man that spins a lot of plates. One that wants to be involved in everything that's possible, and especially if it's going to involve living for Jesus and the kingdom and the church, and also entrepreneurial leadership. So the setback came for me in 2020 when COVID hit, and the world went crazy, and business went crazy, and ministry was crazy, and I finally realized that I wasn't Superman. I was a human being. Although really thankful for where I was, I just had to stop and realize that I couldn't do it all. And from 2020 to 2020 to now, actually, it's been that journey for not only me, but also Potter Homes, is trying to figure out how do we keep things simple? How do we focus? How do we stay disciplined? How do we do what only we can do? And there's a lot of stories in that journey, but I have learned a lot of hard lessons about what not to do, just through being maxed out, just being absolutely maxed out. And so, yeah, both organizationally and personally. So I'm still learning this day.
So what were some of the, if you're comfortable, don't share any more than you want on the World Wide Web, but
yeah.
What, if you're comfortable, share, what were some of those valleys? What were some of those hard times? And then what were some of the things that you learned through those, that as you came out of that would be transferable to some of our listeners?
Yeah. I mean, I think the primary one that's the easiest to point to is the yeses that I was saying outside of the home were making me say no inside the home. And my kids, are now 12, 10, almost 12, 10, 8, 6. And then they were, 8 and under. And just realizing that I can only give so much time and attention, in my life. And so I was giving a lot of time and attention to what I thought were good things, realizing that the best thing that was right in front of me was lacking. And so a lot of my story the last 6 to 8 years has been understanding that my first priority, my first ministry is my family, is my kids, is my wife. And so, yeah, I mean, the wrong yeses can be detrimental. And, you know, in business, you think, say yes to everything, you'll figure out how to do it. Right. And that's kind of the mantra. That's a terrible thing to do, you know. And a good friend of mine has challenged me a lot, saying, stay true to your core business, right? Stay true to your core business, because that's what you know. And so, you know, learning to say no to the things that could produce profit or could produce good, and just say yes to the right things, you know, for the sake of actually staying disciplined and staying focused on my family. So those are some of the, you know, high level learnings.
Focus on the family. You never get those years back, right?
Yeah,
Never
and
going
I
back.
think this is such an important thing for our audience. You know, is I know I'm guilty of it. For me, it's easier to focus on business stuff and let that lag. So that's preaching to me. And I think for a lot of people, you know, I wrote down as you were talking, you know, the old saw that if you want something done, ask somebody who's busy. You know, it's like, so it's kind of the same people that get asked to do things at church and in ministry stuff, and because you know, you can handle a lot. You, like you said, you can spin a lot of deals, but that can also burn you out if you don't know what to say no to. And so I think there's a big lesson in that for me and a lot of other people listening, is learning how to say no to certain things and prioritizing the family, which is easy to deprioritize, I think, for busy, you know, entrepreneurs, if you will.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah,
So
agreed. I'm thankful that.
So what are things? What are some of the things you've done to be able to do that? Have you like set boundaries? You know, like certain number of days at home at dinner, or are there any kind of hard and fast things that you've done?
Yeah, it's a regular conversation with me and my wife. I got to a place a couple years ago where I got scared to bring her ideas or board opportunities or those kind of things. So I just was like, I don't even want to do it. But now it's just it's a conversation. I mean, trying to figure out how to, only having so many travel days a month, you know, being in the home, being able to coach my kids' teams.
Yeah.
I try not to be too legalistic about it,
Right.
say, you know, I can only be out of the house 4 nights a week or 4 nights a month. But it really is just an open dialogue. And it was literally saying no to everything but my family and the business for a season. And now it's asking God and my wife, like, what should we say yes to? And trying to actually do it together. That's the other thing, is a lot of times I was kind of just running and leaving her in the dust and not realizing that it's actually a family mission. It's not Nate's mission. It's God's mission through our family. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's helpful.
So tell us a little bit more about, you talked a couple times about your 4 kids. What are they into?
Yeah, golf, baseball, dance, all things sports.
Okay.
We're so blessed to be able to have all of our family here. My mom and dad are here. My wife's mom and dad are here. Their cousins are here. So family's a big part of our life. Sports are a big part of our life. You know, local church, friendships. So it's the fall and the spring are, like we call it, living la vida loca. You know, you're always on the go, and but it's a good life, that's for sure.
Wait, what did you call it?
Living la vida loca, living the crazy life.
Okay.
Yes.
He spends more time in Ukraine than South America. So you have to forgive him. He's good at Russian.
That's right.
Okay, but
that's true.
what? Okay, here's the other obvious thing that's going on with you, which is very interesting. We do have a lot of family business people on this show, and there is not. If you've seen One Family Business, I think you've seen One Family Business. The dynamics are always challenging. There's some wonderful things about it, some challenging things about it. Maybe share your journey a little bit in that, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Once again, that you can share.
No, I mean, honestly, for someone like me, it's been the best possible thing that could happen, because without it, I'm untethered and I would probably be an absolute wreck, you know. So we're all very different. So my father-in-law is still around, and he is a mentor and on our board, and It's me and his two sons that lead the company, and we're all very different. And being able to figure out how to learn and lead together when we're all different and there's a bunch of family dynamics at play is probably the most refining thing in my life. And but it's constantly reminding me that this is not mine. This is the Lord has given us this business to steward, and it's been a joy to do it together. Not that it hasn't been hard and frustrating, and but it's a constant dying to yourself. So family business is hard, but I am very, very, very thankful for what we have.
What's the division of duties between you and your two brothers-in-law?
Yeah, so I lead the company. I lead the development, the prospects, the clients. We have a real estate company as well, so I lead that company. Well, Tom, who's the oldest son, he oversees all of our construction, along with my dad, and then Ryan, who's my wife's older brother, middle son. He leads our purchasing team.
Okay.
So yeah, we all have very unique gifts and all work in our lanes well together, and it's been good because we have an outside board member.
I was going to ask.
Clint. So Clint, who actually introduced me
to
you guys, he sits on our board. He's been such a blessing to help us kind of work through ownership and leadership and roles and how do we steward the business well and how do we work together. So, but it hasn't been without trouble.
Challenges.
So.
And I just think, I think that also gives permission to other people listening that are going through those things. It is hard. And how do you divide up those roles? How do you divide up those things? Having an outsider, I think that's a good tip on to maybe bring some clarity to that, and a non-emotional. I mean, Clint doesn't have a horse in the race. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So an independent thing. So maybe talk a little more about that. How else has it been helpful to have? What are some of the things you've kind of tried to work through as a group?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing that we have done is we've separated ownership and leadership, and that's probably the biggest thing that family companies that I've seen have a hard time with is that it's if you're an owner and a partner, but also an employee, it gets really, really fuzzy on roles and responsibilities. And so actually being able to say, hey, this is my hat as an owner, and this is who we delegate to lead the company, and being okay with that, being okay with different roles and authority and accountability, and so we brought in a non-family member vice president who is new to the company the last 2 years, and he's been a phenomenal asset for us to be able to hold us accountable and to be able to help us operationally. So that's been huge. Trusting somebody, humbling ourselves to have someone that's non-family to help us navigate the operations of the company, and then having an outside voice there to help us strategically, and so we're not getting in the way of each other. That's those kind of 3 or 4 things have been really, really cool, really, really good for us.
Those are great tips. And when you say, you mind unpacking that a little bit? When you say separate leadership from ownership, maybe unpack what that means a little bit more.
Yes, I mean, so delegating me as the president means that I have a role and the duty of the president of the company to make sure the company is fulfilling its goals. And Tom and Ryan have their roles in the company, but ultimately, I report to those guys. And if they're saying, here's what we want to do and where we want to go, I'm ultimately responsible and accountable to them. And so being able to be okay with different pay structures and different I'm in different rooms than they're in. I'm in different relationships that they're in, and not feeling like we all have to be doing the same thing. It's one of my friends in ministry used to call it like we're all kicking the same soccer ball. It's like a bunch of kids going after the ball in groups rather than actually spreading out. And so that's really what it's been like. It's been, it's we're all spreading out, doing our job, kicking the ball to one another rather than actually all going after the same ball. Which is what we were doing for a lot of time in the 2013 to 2015, 2016 era, and caused a lot of the frustration that was building up and got me to the place of burnout, honestly. So
yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. I think that's really helpful for everybody listening who's dealing with a lot of those same things. And
Yeah.
As we kind of move to the end of the story here, Nate, the thing that we always try to kind of wrap up with is, just some practical tip for somebody behind you on the journey. It might be, you shared lots of things about, spinning the plates or family business or how to integrate ministry. But, as you just think about some practical tip to share with somebody, what comes to mind?
Yeah. I mean, kind of three words come to mind: simple, focused, and relational. And I think if I could really drive anything home to myself, and I wish things I would have done differently 10 years ago, is I would have kept things simple. Stay true to my core business, stay true to my core gifts, and don't deviate. Stay focused on the goal, and don't get distracted by all the fun things that could be. Set a goal and go after it. And honestly, everything's about people, and it's all about people. It's all about relationships. And so don't forsake, for the good of a goal or a mission, don't forsake people, and stay relational with one another, and ultimately, follow the Lord in his ways. And that's going to be what gets you on the right path, right? Is if we're actually truly following the Lord, and he's going to actually help us keep those things in line. So
I think that's great. Simple, focus, and relational. And I also think one of the problems that we hear about and see a lot in family businesses is when communication breaks down. So that relational piece, obviously, I know you're talking about the vertical of being in relationship with God, but also with each other, as he calls us to be. And in a family business, that's very sensitive, right? I would imagine you kind of have to keep short accounts, right? Where if something's going wrong, you don't have the luxury of not talking about it. You got to kind of get it taken care of. Is that true?
Yeah, it's very true. And giving each other the benefit of the doubt, and really and going towards each other and not running away.
Yeah.
Like when it gets hard, or there's an awkward conversation, to actually just go toward each other. And it's easy to kind of run and hide from it.
Yeah, better to deal with it.
Just deal with it. Just deal with it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
So can I, just as we round third base here and come to a close, a couple thoughts, Nate, as you think about you're heavily vested in business and ministry. As we think about generosity, the different types of generosity that we get to talk to business owners about, it's not just about the financial. There's a lot of other human capital, social capital, spiritual capital, but even generationally thinking as far as succession from your parents and your father-in-law and your wife's family, and now you passing that baton on to these different types of capital. But as you think about those two things, generosity and passing the torch faithfully in all those areas, any thoughts? You're heavily, it feels like, into a lot of those areas. I would appreciate your thoughts as we close out here.
Yeah. Sorry if my computer's breaking up here a little bit.
No, we can hear you fine.
Okay, good. Sorry, Mike. So yeah, I mean, I think generosity is easy to be talked about in financial terms, and I think when it comes to the next generation and giving your everything to not only your kids, but this is what Jesus did, right? He chose 12 men, and he gave his whole life to those 12 men. And so I think generosity spreads far beyond finances, and actually is much more productive and much more useful for the kingdom when it's done in an intentional relationship. And so I think for me, for the business, that means maybe it's handed down to our kids, but I think it also means, who are those men in my life that I'm actually pursuing and giving time, attention, energy, prayer, accountability to? I have this dream. It's the 133 dream. It's who are the 12 men that I'm connected to, that they can also be connected to 11 men around. And that, if you think about the web of relationships that comes with, and and where all those people could be represented, that can change the world, and so yeah, I think the relational dynamic and the being intentional with your time in pursuit and in discipleship is everything in life.
So to add to that, sorry, one more thing. As you're obviously integrating the generosity that you are a part of as you build as you work with folks in Lusaka, Zambia, building, did you say a school?
High school, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you integrate that with folks on your team? And you obviously, there's a network there of your employees, your trade contractors. Just give us a couple tips on how you do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we actually decided to commit to sending our team over there. It was one thing for us to talk about it, but for them to actually see it, more than them being a part of building with boots on the ground, it's actually for them to see it and be able to come back and catch a vision for it. And so we have 34 employees, and the idea is that we get every one of them over there at some point in the next 5 years. And so,
wow,
being able to give time, attention, and energy to that's a big commitment for Bill, my father-in-law, to be going over there twice a year.
Yeah,
taking teams, but being able to connect them real life with it, and so
yeah,
crazy.
Well, listen, Nate, thanks so
awesome.
much for being with us. It's just been great to get your story and share it with others. I know many will be blessed to hear it. Thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah,
thank you, Nate.
guys.
Jeff,
All
thanks again. And thanks everybody for listening to this week's Generous Business Owner podcast. Check out our website, subscribe to the podcast on your favorite audio channel and on YouTube, and share it with a friend. We'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Generous Business Owner podcast with Jeff Thomas, Alan Barnhart, and Jeff Rutt. Make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can find the guest contact information in the show notes. Stay tuned for the next episode.